Today we're going to talk about a question from someone named Sachi. So about a week ago I got a comment on my Fixing Your Shoulder Pain Part 1. By the way, a lot of people have shown a lot of love for that video, and I really appreciate it. It's just a very small piece of what's to come. As I mentioned in some of the comments, we are currently rolling through and getting an entire series on the shoulder put together, and I'm going to teach you how to integrate everything so that not only do you fix your shoulder, but you fix everything else that's going on with you. And that's going to sort of involve a couple of different series, one for each major joint segment of the body, and you're going to walk away understanding yourself. And once you understand yourself, you're really going to have the power to be what you want to be, which is usually pain-free, in decent shape, and feeling good about yourself. So what Sachi wants is, Sachi's got two questions. First question was, hey, when I'm doing push-ups, should my elbow pits, which is the pit of the elbow right here at the end of the bicep, makes sense, right? Should they be facing each other, or should they be like pointing forward at the top of a push-up? And the answer is they should be pointing closer in. And it doesn't really matter if they're pointed like little angled off of each other or whether they're perfectly on line with each other. That's an individual thing that depends on how your hands are, okay? But when you have to remember that the pit of the elbow is telling you the orientation of the upper arm bone, okay? So the ball of the upper arm, the ball of the humerus, is facing like this. If this is my humerus, just, I know it's my radius and ulna, but pretend for a second this is the head, this is the ball of the shoulder, okay? This is the socket. Right now my elbow pits are facing in towards each other. If they face out, then that means that the upper arm is rotating externally, which, as you can see, is exactly what happens. So now your biceps are facing forward, elbow pits facing forward, and what you're doing is that ball is pointing out of the socket instead of into the socket. That's bad. That's really bad. What that's doing is stretching the labrum. And you're going to end up peeling the labrum away from the bone eventually. And it won't happen like in a day or a week or a month usually. It will be a long, slow process, at the end of which you end up having a really nasty Bankart lesion or something similar, which is a fancy way of saying that your arm tears the front of the labrum. At that point you have an unstable shoulder, and it really can't be fixed without surgery. And labral surgery is no fun to come back from. It's really tedious because you have to wait a long time for all that stuff to knit up properly, and then you really have to stay on top of all your rotator cuff exercises, which you should do anyways, but you have to be especially diligent about it because when you screw up, you end up re-injuring that shoulder. So I recommend that you skip that whole injury-re-injury process and just keep the elbow pits facing in towards each other when you're doing your push-ups. And it really doesn't matter, when you're holding parallel bars, they'll be facing more at like a 45-degree angle, or maybe a little more like a 60-degree angle, right, where they're not quite 90 degrees in, pointing directly at each other, but they're not going to be all the way forward, okay? That's really even the case when you're doing. We'll talk about other things when it comes up. For now, just keep in mind that the more out your arms are, yes, the more out the elbow pits are going to be facing, and the less in. But there's always going to be some degree of facing in. Okay.